Brief History of Japanese Taiwan, 1895 to 1945.
In April 1895, the Treaty of Shimonoseki ends the First Sino-Japanese War, ceding Taiwan and the Penghu Islands to Japan in perpetuity. Beijing abandons the island, ordering all Qing officials to evacuate and return to the mainland immediately. Refusing to submit, the local gentry proclaimed the Republic of Formosa on May 23rd, electing Tong Jing-song as their reluctant president. On May 29th, the Japanese Imperial Guards Division lands on the northern coast, marking the beginning of the 5-month Iwoi War. Having left Port Arthur in haste, the guardsmen suffer in the humid climate, still wearing the winter gear meant for Manchuria. As the Japanese approach, the Taipei garrison collapses into disorder, abandoned by leaders who have already fled for the mainland. Fearing the lawlessness of the looters more than the invaders, Taipei's elite invite the Japanese in to restore order. At dawn on June 7, the Japanese occupy the capital, effectively ending the northern phase of the Republican resistance. The advance south is far slower. Local Hakka militias use the rugged terrain to launch fierce guerrilla ambushes. In August, the Battle of Baguashan becomes the largest engagement on Taiwanese soil, breaking the spine of the organized resistance. By October, the Black Flag Army commander Lu Yongfu flees to the mainland, leaving foreigners to negotiate Tainan's surrender. On October 21st, Tainan falls. Organized resistance ends, and 5 decades of Japanese colonial rule begin.
Resistance remains high. In early 1896, 6 Japanese educational officials are killed at Shisangan, shocking the new administration. Retaliation is brutal. In June 1896, the Japanese massacre thousands in Yunlin, burning 4,000 homes in response to guerrilla attacks. In Tokyo, many view the new colony as a financial burden, even debating whether to sell the island back to France or China. Everything changes with Goto Shimpei. A physician by training, he approaches Taiwan not just as a colony, but as a biological laboratory. Goto launches a massive land reinvestigation project to redraw boundaries and identify unaccounted land for taxation. Infrastructure is a priority. Sanitary experts are brought in to build water and sewage systems to combat tropical diseases. Goto establishes a state monopoly on opium, using the lucrative revenue to fund his modernization projects. The Japanese co-opt the ancient Hoko system, making every 10 households collectively responsible for any crime in their neighborhood. The 3 vices, foot binding, queue wearing, and opium smoking, become targets of social reform campaigns. By 1905, the island becomes fiscally self-sufficient, its economy reoriented to serve as Japan's sugar bowl and rice basket. The early insurgency finally collapses in 1902, when the last major guerrilla leader, Lin Xiaomao, is hunted down and killed. Within a decade, the backward backwater has been transformed into a showpiece of Meiji modernity.
Having pacified the plains, the administration turns its gaze toward the Central Mountains, home to the non-acculturated indigenous tribes. Sakuma initiates the 5-year plan to governing Aborigines, constructing an electrified guard line to contain tribes and open logging zones. Resistance is fierce. The Atayal and Bunan tribes defend their ancestral lands against encroachment by Japanese timber interests. The colonial military responds with land invasions and naval bombardments, systematically destroying hundreds of rebel villages.
After the Truku-Japanese War of 1914, survivors are forced into civilizational poses to showcase the triumph of Meiji order. In 1915, the Tepani incident erupts, the largest armed uprising of the era, uniting people through religious and millenary fervor. Yu Qingfang's followers briefly declare an independent Thai republic, storming substations across southern Taiwan. The colonial army crushes the main uprising at Jiaobanyan, utilizing superior firepower to end the organized Han resistance. Retribution is absolute. Thousands are executed or die in the subsequent pacification sweeps through southern towns. For acculturated tribes, education becomes the primary tool of control, though curricula are strictly segregated from those of Japanese children. Tribes that submit are given flags to fly over their villages, to them a sign of protection, to the Japanese a sign of jurisdiction. By 1915, the island is physically unified by rail and wire, though its soul remains divided between the colonizer and the colonized.
In 1919, following global calls for self-determination, Japan shifts to a civilian administration under the policy of homeland extension. Inspired by the liberal Taishō era, Taiwanese intellectuals formed societies to petition Tokyo for local autonomy and political rights. The Taiwan Cultural Association is founded, using lectures and plays to spread modern knowledge and foster a sense of Taiwanese identity. The 1922 Education Ordinance officially ends school segregation, though in practice, linguistic barriers still keep the systems apart. Girls' education is governed by the good wife, wise mother ideal, aiming to train Taiwanese women to support the modern Japanese state. Hydraulic engineer Hata Yoichi begins work on the Chianan Irrigation Canal, the largest such project in Asia at the time. Completed in 1930, the system turns the Chianan Plain into the island's primary granary, quintupling crop yields. The visit of Crown Prince Hirohito in 1923 serves as a grand ritual of imperial subjectification, displaying the power of the Japanese throne.
In a daring protest, Taiwan's first aviator drops leaflets over the Japanese capital, decrying the colonial government's totalitarian rule. Higher education is expanded with the 1928 founding of Taipei Imperial University, though its seats are mostly reserved for Japanese colonists. A new generation of new intellectuals emerges, fluent in Japanese and well-versed in global cultural and political thought. Beneath the surface of prosperity, the island has become a miniature police state where every move of the intelligentsia is monitored.
In Musha, long-simmering resentment peaks when a Japanese officer strikes Chief Mona Rudao's son at a wedding banquet. Believing retribution is inevitable, Mona Rudao launches a preemptive strike against the local administration. On October 27th, during a school sports meet, over 300 warriors attack the Japanese in attendance, killing 134. In the chaos, 2 Han Taiwanese children are mistakenly killed because they are wearing Japanese dress. Governor General Ishizuka orders 2,000 troops to Musha, enforcing a total press blackout to keep the world in the dark. The warriors retreat into the high mountains, utilizing nighttime guerrilla tactics that stymie the superior Japanese forces. Desperate for a quick end, the Japanese deploy mustard gas bombs, the first recorded use of chemical warfare in Asia. The administration pays rival Toda warriors to hunt down the Sedic, exploiting tribal rivalries to minimize Japanese casualties.
By December, the rebellion is crushed. Chief Mona Rudao and hundreds of his followers commit suicide to avoid capture. In the second Musha incident, pro-Japanese tribes are allowed to attack the defenseless survivors, beheading every male over 15. The fallout is catastrophic. Ishizuka is forced to resign, and the failure of the civilizing mission is laid bare to the world. The status of indigenous peoples is upgraded to Takasago Zoku as the colonial state intensifies efforts to turn them into loyal subjects.
In July 1937, full-scale war breaks out between Japan and China, signaling a radical turn in Taiwan's colonial administration. The Kominka, or Imperialization movement, begins. Chinese language sections in all newspapers are banned, and the language is purged from schools. The parlor improvement movement forces families to adopt state Shinto, replacing local gods with the Japanese sun goddess Amaterasu. In 1940, a name-changing campaign is launched. 7% of the population adopts Japanese surnames to show their loyalty. The National Language Family Program offers privileges to those who speak only Japanese at home, making the language a symbol of status. Taiwanese opera, puppet plays, and even fireworks are banned as un-Japanese and detrimental to the imperial spirit. Taiwan is rapidly industrialized to manufacture war material, its output exceeding agricultural production for the first time. The southward expansion doctrine turns Taiwan into an unsinkable aircraft carrier for invasions of South China and the Pacific. The administration launches a military volunteer program. Over 400,000 apply for the first 1,000 slots, seeking honor or economic survival. Some youths attach desires written in blood to their applications, fully socialized as Japanese subjects for their entire lives. The Takasago volunteers are sent to the South Pacific, where their jungle survival skills are highly prized by Japanese commanders. For many, the war against China, the land of their ancestors, is a psychological tragedy that the Kominka movement cannot erase. In December 1941, the war becomes global. Taiwan is now on the front lines of the conflict between empires. Taiwan becomes a transit point for thousands of Allied prisoners, many of whom suffer in the especially heinous Jingguashi mines. Hundreds of Taiwanese serve as camp guards, a role that will lead to tragic legal entanglements and war crime trials after the conflict. Thousands of Taiwanese women and girls are sex trafficked as comfort women to battlefields across the Asia-Pacific. By 1943, Allied submarine attacks on Japanese shipping isolate the island, causing the economy and food supplies to plummet. Expecting an Allied invasion, the administration institutes total conscription, drafting 60,000 Taiwanese men for defense. Over 30,000 Taiwanese soldiers are killed in action, their families left to mourn in a world that is rapidly collapsing. The war truly arrives at home. Early on May 31, the U.S. 5th Air Force launches the devastating Taipei air raid. Over 3,000 people are killed in a single morning, and thousands more are left homeless as the city's landmarks burn. For the young, it is a time of terror as death comes from a clear blue sky.
Roughly 1% of Taipei's population is lost, yet the scale is overshadowed by the much larger firebombings in Japan. Isolated and burning, the island waits for an end that everyone now knows is coming.
On August 15, 1945, the Emperor announces Japan's unconditional surrender. The 50-year colonial era is over. Elation sweeps the island. After 5 decades, many believe they are finally returning to their ancestral motherland. For the 300,000 Japanese residents, the home islands they are being sent to are a charred, unfamiliar ruin. By 1946, 90% of the Japanese population is repatriated, leaving a severe vacuum of technical and professional expertise. Under MacArthur's General Order No. 1, the Republic of China, ROC, is delegated as the principal occupying power of the island. Cession Day. General Ando, the last Governor-General, formally hands over Taiwan to Chen Yi, the new ROC chief executive. The honeymoon is short. The Taiwanese quickly witness a corrupt administration that begins seizing resources for the civil war on the mainland. Cultural clashes erupt immediately. Chen Yi refuses to use Japanese and labels the local population as enslaved and poisoned by colonial rule. Within a year, the KMT bans the use of Japanese in all media, effectively silencing 70% of the educated population. The history of the Japanese period begins to fade from the official narrative, replaced by a strictly China-centered identity. Decades later, a process of Taiwanization allows the island to reclaim its complex hybrid history as both victim and subject. The imperial laboratory remains, its foundations buried beneath the layers of a modern, democratic nation that still navigates the shadows of its past.